You're tuned in to another episode of Recruitment Entrepreneurs by Recruit CRM. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Recruitment Entrepreneurs by Recruit CRM. And today I have the privilege of hosting Jason Chad. So Jason, to get started, can you just give us like a quick intro of where you're from, what you do, and what got you here?
Yeah, for sure. So I got into the recruiting kind of an interesting way. So I graduated from school and I started working at IBM, and I was there for 4 years, and it wasn't the place for me. Just a little bit too big, a little bit too bureaucratic. Fantastic sales training, and a lot of my network that I still have today comes from those IBM days. So love the place. Not a negative experience working there, but I would say it just wasn't for me. And so I started looking around, and I was actually going to go work at Microsoft of all places, which was a little bit out of the frying pan into the fire. And so at the time, my uncle ran this company called Chad Management Group, and he'd been recruiting at that point for 20 years. One of the bigger recruiting kind of entities in the Canadian marketplace. And so I went and talked to him about it and wanted to get his perspective. It was, I never loved the idea of joining a family business. It was never the intent. So we had this 2-hour meeting. I went through my options, and do I do Microsoft? Do I stay at IBM? Do I something, more entrepreneurial?
And I don't know if he sold. Was the Microsoft job in Canada or in Seattle?
In Canada. It would have been Canada as well. Yeah.
Got it.
And I don't know if I sold him or he sold me. It was not planned. But 2 hours later, I'm gonna try this recruiting thing out. And that was honestly 20 years ago.
Wow. So is this like 2001 then?
This is 2001. Yeah.
What if you were at Microsoft the whole time? What did you? I'm sorry, I cut you.
This is the start of 2002. So I left. I left in June of 2002.
Got it. And so, what if you had stayed at Microsoft and collected all those stock options with Microsoft exploding the last 5 or 6 years? Have you done the math on that? That would be crazy.
I've not done the math on that. No is the short answer. I probably don't want to. In terms of master, I went to school at Wilfrid Laurier, which is a university in Waterloo, Canada. And that's first year there. Our prof brings in this guy named Jim Balsillie, another guy named Mike Fazerlicki, who were the founders of Research in Motion, BlackBerry. And no one knew who they were at the time, right? And we had this class. It was this class on entrepreneurship, and they talked to us for an hour. And at the end of the hour, they leave, and our prof turns to the class and says, "Okay, I want everyone to take $1,000 and buy this stock now." And no one did. That's our beer money for the entire year, right?
Yeah.
This is the late 90s. And our prof said, "To show you how serious I am, I'm going to take 50 grand and I'm going to buy the stock," which he did. And fast forward, we were at homecoming a couple of years ago, and he's retired and he lives on a yacht. He's made so much money based on because the stock went from $1 to 250 split, went to 250 again split, and he wrote the whole thing. And I have a good story.
That's insane. That's insane. And so when you started recruiting, in your first year recruiting way back in 2002, 2003, one, did you think it was a harder job than your sales job at IBM? And two, did you end up making more money that year being a professional recruiter than you were being a professional salesperson?
And so was it a harder job? It was a harder job than I thought. Absolutely. Everyone has this idea that recruiting is going to be easy. Because it sounds like, I'm a matchmaker. I'm going to take, this person here and this job there and put them together and everyone's going to be happy. And it sounds easy, I guess, on paper. It's not. It's a ton of work. So it was absolutely harder than I thought it would be. But I did make more money the first year, for sure. So it was monetarily, it's been a great decision.
And how were how were commissions set up back then, right? So for folks that are watching this, thinking about getting into the recruitment industry or trying to set up an incentive plan for folks that work for them, was it like back in 2003? Was it like a tiny base, and then every time you make a placement, you make like 20% or 30%? Like, how did it work?
Oh, it was no base. It was
Zero.
yeah, zero base.
That's crazy.
And you got every placement you made, you got a really, really big chunk.
So was it more than 50% or like little less than
no,
50?
no, always a little less, just under, right? But if you at the time, and also our rates back then were a lot higher than they are today.
Wow. What were they like? Were they like 30% or like 25%?
Yeah.
Wow.
25 to 30.
Wow.
And so you at the time, you close $100,000 job, you can have a commission check coming in. The business makes 30, you can make almost 10, 15. Like that's
solid. And how many placements did you make your first year? Do you even remember? Like
my first year I did, I don't remember 100%. It was somewhere in the range of 10. So almost one a month.
That's super solid, right? Because the first year you probably expect someone to make like 4 or like 5, and then they're all right? if they do that. So
yeah, but what the business did for me, and which I try and do for my people now, is you start people off and you give them a win. And so I started and I had accounts off the bat to work on. Okay. I think it's always, when you hire someone and you say, okay, I'm going to hire you to do business development. And so I'm going to give you no training. I'm going to give you no patch. Just go out and kind of make stuff happen. It's a recipe for failure, right? Like I always have this argument when I do a lot of recruiting in the sales space. And it drives me crazy when you have all these kind of new business development roles and you try and hire the most junior person you can, because it's a hard job, because people get, people have this feeling when you get more senior, I don't have to do cold calls anymore. And I think it's totally backwards. I think you should have the most senior person in your organization doing cold calls or business development using your network, because you have the most credibility. You hire someone 2 years out of school that has no contacts, that has no network. Like, what credibility do they have to make a cold call?
Yeah.
So so the business gave me some accounts to start with, and so I wasn't starting from nothing.
And so you had a great first year, and you were like, recruitment's working. I'm making more money than I was before. So how did that go from being a professional recruiter working at your uncle's agency to like becoming a business owner? Did you end up like buying in to that company? Like, how did that work out? Like, what's the story there?
Yeah, in the story there is every year, my progression in terms of my responsibility and my accountability and my revenue, like money I was making personally, it did this. Well, it did this in 2008. It didn't, and then it went up again. And I ended up becoming a partner. And then I ended up starting an offshoot. So I run ChadTech, which is an offshoot of Chad Management Group. We're related businesses, and we share some costs, we share some employees, but they're the same. But they're also run as separate entities in terms of ChadTech is the business.
So when you say separate entities, do you mean like the main group owns a piece of this company, or is it?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it. And is it like a back and forth ownership where this company owns a little bit of that and that owns a little bit of this, or is it more one way?
No, it's both. You got it right.
Wow, that's awesome. And what made you decide that you wanted to like have a separate practice for yourself versus just work in that structured umbrella?
It was one. It was I wanted a bit more autonomy. Again, working with a family business has its pros and cons, and we get along great, my uncle and I, and we still I talk to him almost every day for 20 years, and so
has he retired? Very positive. Has he retired now, or no?
No, he's still there.
Wow.
And he's if you ever get a chance, he's absolutely the best business dev person you will meet in the entire world.
awesome.
Like back in the days when we were allowed, going out and meeting people in person all the time. Like he'd walk into any room, any conference, and there'd be 800 people there. He'd meet all of them. Like
Wow.
that just he just still has this drive to do that. So awesome from a biz dev perspective. But yeah, you get to the point where you will want to have something of your own as well, and also he's not as strong as I am on the tech side. So his background has always been more on the marketing side. He does a lot of work with agencies, and so ChadTech has really focused a lot more on the technical side of the business. So I do a lot of sales, but it's more technical sales. We do a lot of technical recruiting, and so we had to change the model a bit.
What was the year that you started ChadTech?
So ChadTech really started in 2018.
Got it. So it's fairly recent. So have you guys hit that magical $1 million?
Yep.
Okay, so you guys have already broken $1 million in a year, right? That's and how long did it take to hit $1 million, like a run rate for $1 million, or like hit $1 million for real? Like was it in 12 months, 6 months, 2 years? Like
it was 18-ish months. I mean,
wow.
There's some interesting ramp up. And also again, going back to my earlier part of the story, we weren't starting from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And so we had a ton of clients that we were working with already, that we knew, I knew personally, and it was a matter of going to them and say, hey, listen, we do this now. So we're able to kind of add.
And so out of interest, like tell me more, right? So you start this new thing called ChadTech. Are you the only person that's doing this, or do you have partners that own pieces of the company too that came in with you, or was it just you that owned it and you hired like 4 people on the first day? Like how did that launch happen?
Yeah, so I ended up taking a couple employees from the Chad management side kind of with me. And so, day one, I had 3 people that worked for me on that business, and as it's grown, I've hired more, and some people have changed. And the cool thing is, because we're kind of sister companies, if I get really busy, I'm able to take resources from them, and vice versa. If they get really busy, they take resources from me. We're able to share.
Got it. And the scariest part of starting your own brand, right? Like, is obviously you're putting in your name out there, and you're also putting up your own money, I'm guessing, right? To make it work. So do you remember how much money you ended up burning or spending before you got profitable? Like, was it 10 grand, 50 grand, 200 grand? Like,
I mean, it was more than 10 for sure.
I bet less than 100.
It was less than 100. Yeah.
It's solid. So you spent, or you burned less than 100 grand to build a business that within 18 months got to $1 million. And I think most of us know recruitment businesses can operate anywhere from 10 to 30, 40% in profit margins, depending on how well the person running them is running them.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. And like, if you had to do the whole thing all over again, like, what would you change?
Well, I mean, I changed the circumstances of when I did it. I mean, the whole pandemic thing has thrown our business for a huge loop, right? And so, I mean, I would have invested in less office space. I would invest in more technology, right? Like it's.
Got it. Also, do you have like a big lease for many years that you like signed?
Yeah, I mean, we have another 1.5 years left on it, and I mean, no one's there, right? Like
that's rough, right?
It's no one goes, and I can't blame them. Like right now, I'm sitting in my home office too, right? So,
do you expect them to come back once like the whole it's cool to come back? Do you want everyone to come back to work, or like what's your take on remote versus?
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a hybrid model. I want people to have the option to come back. But I think that people have changed the way they work, and they've changed the way they're comfortable. Though I do think it's a misnomer. I think people have this mindset that, particularly like a lot of my staff, a lot of them are kind of the younger generation, for lack of a better word. And a lot of people have this misnomer that the kids don't want to be in the office anymore. They're happy to work from home, and that's not true. It's people who have that money. people who are a bit older in the careers like me, we tend to forget that when we first started working, the office was where we met our friends. It was where we got our social interaction. I have some of these people that are working from home for me. I mean, they're living, with roommates.
It's rough. It's a much rougher situation. It's a much rougher situation, right?
It's not fun to work at home sometimes, right? So I think giving them the option, listen, here's an office, here's your desk, you can go. You don't have to go every day, but we're going to have a meeting a couple days a week.
So that's the follow-up point question to that, right? So you don't intend to ever call any of your employees and be like, hey, you have to come to work at least one day a week or this isn't going to work. No. So you're going to keep an office, but it's an option, right? It's not like something that they're required to come to work, made to feel like, hey, if you don't come to the office, someone else is getting a promotion because they do come.
Right. No. But also, because of like, I now have an employee that works full time for me in Miami, for example. Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously he doesn't have to come to the office every day, right? And the other piece, yeah. Well, the other piece is that the world's become a lot smaller. It's you look at how you and I connected. If not for the pandemic, maybe you wouldn't have, right? I look at some of who my clients are now. Like I'm dealing with people in Singapore. I'm dealing with a lot of clients in the US, some stuff in Europe, and it's
this is an important follow-up question, right? So the pandemic has changed a lot of things. So have you seen a lot of have you been able to now sign up clients that were not necessarily in your core market, like maybe companies out of San Francisco or New York or, like you said, Singapore? Were these clients that you already had pre-pandemic, or are they people that you were able to get because of the pandemic?
Able to get because of the pandemic.
And to flip that question the other way, with the whole remote thing, are you suddenly now talking to non-Canadian candidates, right?
Absolutely. I had a client call me last week. Again, I'm based in Toronto, and one of my biggest clients nowadays is a client that's based in Pennsylvania, of all places. And again, cool. I didn't know them 2 years ago, right? But networking online and just being active.
Is it Dunder Mifflin?
It's not Dunder Mifflin. House Granite. But I got a call from my HR director there, and she seems to hire 10 account executives, and we're working on that, right? And so, it's crazy because it's huge orders, and this wouldn't have happened 2 years ago, right? And it's just because of the pandemic, the world's become a lot more open, I find.
Are they cool with hiring people anywhere in the world, or North America, or do they have like specific? How's it changed?
No, they have. I find that U.S. clients want people that live in the U.S. They're very open as to where in the U.S. But if
are they not cool with Canada though? Because it's the same time zone, same culture, same.
No,
cheaper currency.
Not the same culture. Culture is actually different.
Would you say so? Like, would you say the culture in like, say New York is that much different than like Toronto? Like,
yeah, I would.
And could you qualify that? Like, could you maybe give me a couple?
Sure. Yeah. The first thing I'd say is everyone has everyone talks about how kind of quote unquote nice Canadians are, which is true. And it's not to say that Americans aren't nice. They're just different. So I find that they're a lot more direct.
Yes.
They're a lot more, I guess, honest in a way. And again, not that Canadians aren't honest, but in Canada, if you don't like something, you'll avoid the questions so you don't have to answer it.
Yeah. Like for an example, right? If probably in Canada, if you think someone's an asshole, you'll just stop talking to them. Versus in the US, you'll be like, hey, you're an asshole, I'm not going to talk to you, and then stop talking to them, right? Like,
but not even stop talking. So I had this one client in the US, and I love working with him because if he doesn't like something, he's going to tell me. And sometimes he's not super nice the way he tells me. What I like about it, though, is it gives me a chance to react and to have a conversation. And I find that, even if he's yelling and screaming, I yell and scream back a little bit, and I give him my point of view, and then we're fine. And then we move on. And more often than not, exactly. And Jason, you're right. I didn't see it that way. And then we move forward. But some clients in Canada, they don't have that discussion.
Yeah.
And so things do. So, again, pros and cons to both.
So it's a different way of working, right? And there's no looking back now, right? You have to sort of operate this way. Now, quick question: where are you at now as a company? You're obviously over $1 million in run rate revenue. How big are you? Are you 5 consultants, 20 consultants, somewhere in the middle? How big is the team?
We're not. Yeah. So right now we are at full time. There's 6 of us, and then I have another 3 or 4 that
part-time.
Either work part-time, and then there's one other person that kind of works on both sides of the business, the Chad management and ChadTech.
And in the beginning of our conversation, you said, when you started at Chad management, it was like a zero-based job. There's no base salary. Is it the same in your, does no one get a salary?
No one gets a salary. No. Now we do.
That sounds amazing as a business owner, right? You don't pay anyone unless the team's making money.
What I said that we do give draw, and so we're giving. No one's starving. And when I say there's no salary, I do for the researchers and people just getting out. Yeah, some of them will absolutely get salary, but when you get to a point when you're really good at it, you always get the option. Listen, you have the chance to make a lot more money by moving to this kind of commission structure. And once you've been doing it long enough and you're good at it, you see the flow. Okay, well, I've closed this many deals and I had this many deals in the workflow. If I'm able to keep on closing at the rate I'm doing, you'll make a lot more money. And the kind of people that I like employing are the people that are kind of killers like that, right? You look at recruitment's all like real estate, in a sense where there's a million people in it, and the only people but the top 2% do very well, and the other 98% don't, right? And so you want to cater to that 2%.
Yeah, they make most of the money. The top 10% of recruiters probably make 80-85% of the money.
Yeah.
Right. And that's so basically, if you're not, everyone who's average and below is probably starving or struggling. But the top 10% are probably in Bentleys, which is great. So to follow up on that, right? What's one thing that you expected starting this business that did happen, and one thing that you expected would happen that didn't happen, right? So.
Oh, interesting question. Okay, so the one thing that I expected that didn't happen, and again, I think this is more based on pandemic and stuff, is there's a couple employees that I thought would be future partners for sure. Yeah. And one of them will be, and one of them is not going to be, and it's not a fault of mine or theirs. They've based on some personal stuff they're going through, situation. So many people's personal situations have changed, and so the team dynamic has changed.
So do you mean it's because they've quit, or are they still with the business but they just want to roll doing an individual job?
Either what they've gone from someone who I thought was a future partner, and now they're part-time. And so they haven't quit, but it's they're not as focused as
about it
I would have thought or what I would have liked. And in terms of the piece of something that's happened I didn't expect, it's how global the role and the company's become. Yeah, it's wild.
That's crazy.
It's
And if I ask you what's the hardest part about your job as a owner of a small mid-sized recruitment agency that's growing quickly, what's the crappiest part about it?
It's funny to say this, but the hardest part, and this is I think running any business, is the people side, right? It's amazing. if I could, I'd spend 20 more hours a week recruiting for me. Right. And so I'd have more more people on my staff doing biz dev and filling roles. Now part of that is me, I think, needing to learn how to delegate a bit better. That's a whole other conversation that we can have. But yeah, I would love to have even more on my staff, and I need to make time to build that.
Solid. And so following up on that question, what are the growth plans for the next 5 years? Like, what's the perfect situation you'd be in 5 years if you had to like visualize it?
I would say in the next 5 years, I want to keep on the track that we're on for sure. But I'm looking at, I've started to do a bit more in terms of consulting and advising clients as well. And I'm really enjoying that side of things. And so
can you explain that a little more? What do you mean by consulting and advising?
There's a couple startups there's 2 or 3 startups that I'm dealing with in the HR tech space. I'm actually an advisor. I'm on their board. I'm helping them figure out what their business strategy is going to be, the pricing strategy. And so, I've been involved in this space for 20 years. I know a lot about it. I know, right? And so just using that knowledge for something else. And so I can see the business going in that direction as well, where we're consulting and helping, not just doing the transactions, but being more involved in the strategy side as well.
Cool. And what's your situation like? Are you single? Are you married? Like, do you have kids, dogs, cats? Like,
married, 2 kids, 11 and 8. It's been an interesting year because my wife's at home working. I'm at home working. The past year, my kids have been at home on virtual school. And so we are using every inch of our house now. We're using it all.
That's insane. And final question, right? What's advice to your 20-year-old self?
The advice I give to my 20-year-old self is take more chances. There's so much I look back on. Could I have done the ChadTech thing earlier? Absolutely. Could I have done this consulting advisory thing earlier? Absolutely. I would tell myself to put myself in more uncomfortable situations and see how I do. Just take chances.
And there we have it, guys. That was Jason Chad, and put yourself in more uncomfortable situations to go the distance. Thanks, Jason. Thanks for doing this. This was awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
And that's all for today's episode of Recruitment Entrepreneurs. Like and follow us if you liked today's episode and want to hear more stories from the world of recruitment.